And I'm back. This is a middle perch right here on the internet. I'm MTK on the IC, and I'm live to one viewer lately. It's a track I made yesterday. You can find it on among the videos that I posted yesterday. Today is the 5th game of the World Series is today. Okay, and Donald Trump has announced that he is going to attend. It'll be the first baseball game he attends as President of the United States of America. And Rob Manfred says he's going to arrive after the game starts and leave before the game ends. And presidents going to baseball games has gone back to, I think, Taft in the early 1900s. And throwing out of first pitches, which is ceremonial, is something that the presidents do. And I was thinking today, it's kind of interesting if, this falls into the category of how I wish America was as opposed to how it is. And of which I've gotten many of those, And in this instance, it's the idea that, I don't know if you know this, but there's a player who plays for the Washington Nationals who uses for his walk-up music, he uses the song Baby Shark, which if you're not familiar with it, it's a children's animated cartoon which has a song that goes along with it. And it has caught on as this batter in Washington goes to the plate. They play Baby Shark. The entire crowd sings Baby Shark, do, 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 do. And they all do the shark hands, And Donald Trump is going to the game tonight. And I just thought to myself, in my imagining fantasy land of a mind, how awesome would it be if the entire place just stood up when Donald was there and started going, fire Trump, do 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 do, fire Trump, do 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 do, fire Trump, do 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 do, fire Trump, fire Trump, do do. The entire, I could just. This is what it's like inside my head. This fantasy world I live in, where people are cool and the country's good, and we're not being pushed around by militant white males. But that would be hilarious. What if the entire place just started singing the Baby Shark tune and using the lyric Fire Trump? That would be an amazing moment. And here we have all this stuff, right? I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Twitter. At least you have to know that. But if that got viral all day today with the hashtag Fire Trump, so much so that by the time the game time came, when they showed Trump on the big board, there were at least, say, 3,000 people in that stadium who were down. They could pull off a loud and fascinating comment at World Series game number 5 tonight. And I would love to see that. Speaking of the World Series, it has now graduated from being among my top 30 to among my top 20 World Series. I've seen 42 World Series. I love baseball. I love the World Series. It's this incredible contest between two leagues with different rules. And this year, what's fascinating is the road team keeps winning. The rationale here, I think, is more based on the fatigue of the Astros coming off of their championship series and the freshness of the Nationals for the first 2 games. And now the better team is starting to win in the second 2 games. And this leaves us with a 3-game series to end the World Series, which is I love those. And a 7-game series is, of course, ideal, of which I've seen, I think, something like 8 of them in my life. And since it's not my team, the one thing I'm rooting for is a 7-game series. But it would be really hilarious if the entire audience at the Nationals game in D.C. tonight, when Donald gets there, sang "Fire Trump, do 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 do, fire Trump, do 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 do, fire Trump, do 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 do, fire Trump." That'd be nice. That would be nice. And then another one I had yesterday. I was sitting next to somebody and we had this thought. We were talking about whether or not Andy Reid, the coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, could hire Colin Kaepernick because his quarterback has gone down, and the quarterback is the MVP of last season, I believe, Patrick Mahomes. He's an incredible young talent. He'll be down for a few weeks. And Andy Reid, it's really disgusting because the way this came up is because a commentator said, well, Andy Reid hired Michael Vick, who was the man who was convicted of having dogs fight and stuff and did jail time when he was coming out of prison. And Andy Reid, gave chances to people nobody else would give a chance to. That's the logic there. But what we're basically doing is comparing Colin Kaepernick to a criminal who needs reformation. When in fact, Colin Kaepernick has done nothing wrong, and he's a patriot who has stood up for the rights of certain specific people who are being, systematically oppressed. And he used the First Amendment of our Constitution and his position properly to communicate a protest, a silent protest at that. And now the dialogue is, oh, well, maybe Andy Reid could be the guy who gets him back into the NFL because he let all the criminals in. He's the guy who let all the criminals in. That's already insanely offensive. But then I was thinking, if I was Andy Reid, what I would do is I would immediately say, looks like we're getting Patrick Mahomes home back on November, whatever. I'm hiring Colin Kaepernick for a limited 3 starts. Mr. Kaepernick and I have come to an agreement. The organization and I have come to an agreement. He's perfect because he's a gunslinging quarterback. He fits the exact style of what Mahomes is doing. I can teach him the stuff pretty quickly. And we're going to hire Colin Kaepernick for 3 games. Boom. And then here's MTK's fantasy world where America's good and not evil and messed up and horrible and run by white supremacist, patriotic, so-called pseudo-patriots and militants. Andy Reid hires Colin Kaepernick. Game 1 of Kaepernick at the helm. The anthem. Andy Reid on one knee. Right next to Colin Kaepernick. Let them hold hands. Andy Reid on one knee with Colin Kaepernick holding hands during the national anthem. If we're talking about reforming the criminal, let's reform the criminal, which is the American psyche that believes that silent protest of this nature is somehow a reason to hate a person and not allow him to do his job, Andy Reid, Colin Kaepernick on one knee during the anthem. Yeah. Now that would be great for America right there. As would 20,000 people in Washington, D.C. tonight singing, "Fire Trump, do 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 do, fire Trump, do 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 do, fire Trump, do 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 do, fire Trump, fire." I have a little bit of a cold. Forgive me. It's disgusting, isn't it? All right, so that's a bunch of baseball talk today. And football talk, sports talk. The intersection between sports and politics has been part of the conversation in the last several weeks here. But I've had that for many, many, many decades. I've wished that athletes would do exactly what Colin Kaepernick has done since the days of Ali doing it. And it's only because most of us are powerless. We are powerless to speak to those who are, running this thing. and to communicate basic truths that affect millions, tens of millions, and hundreds of millions of us. So when you get the light, to use it in a carefully thought out way, as a specific communication, is beautiful and powerful and important. In 1968, when Tommy Smith and John Carlos, placing first and third in the Olympics, knew live in color all over the world they would be seen, they had a plan. Neither of them wore shoes on the pedestal. They had one black glove each. So the right glove is on Tommy's, Mr. Smith's, and the left is on Mr. Carlos's. They wore beads of color representing Africa and other notions of collective spiritual cultures. They knew that they would be holding the fist that was gloved up, so each of them held a different fist up. All of this was a planned, carefully thought out, and well executed silent protest on the international stage, which resulted in such a clapback that the two men were stripped of their medals, kicked out of the Olympics, and lived 25 years of just oppressed lives. Couldn't get work. Because in their time, they couldn't be seen as heroes. So when I think about Colin Kaepernick, and I think about the history of athletes who gain access, who choose to make carefully thought out silent protests, I think of those people as the true patriots. I really do. And that's the America I want to live in. That's the America I thought we were growing in the 90s. And this is the problem now. And I want that America. I don't want this nonsense. So militant. Every reaction. I was reading about Afghanistan today and what a mess it is. The United States needs to stop everything, rewind big time, and take another path, because this is not cool. Not cool. All right, so what were we going to do today? I don't know where we got off on a sort of a tangent. I think part of it was I decided I wasn't going to try to have so much scripted material. I feel like I turned this stuff on and then I just kind of like nervously want script, but I'm not writing script, right? And arguably what I'm doing when I'm reading these long form pieces is using the medium, which is YouTube, in a way that I could never use radio. Because on radio, say I have a staff of 12 people working on a newscast and we have an hour or a half hour to make a newscast, right? We're composing 3 articles or 3 interviews or 4 different pieces of information into a single story that may range 6 minutes in length, 4 to 6 minutes in length. So composing script for news radio is not what I want to be doing here, because the format allows me to go as long as I want. But unfortunately, the attention span of the American society has dropped and dwindled, and the packets are what it's all about. So I don't know if it's really going to be this one's cool. I like the beat on this one. I've been digging up these old tracks that I've been making. This one's got a cool kind of a loping horse thing going on the beat. It isn't satisfying anymore to use this software for me. I've made about I don't know, 45 tracks, 50 tracks.